My name is Paul Gershkowitz, and I am the co-host of this year's Community Holocaust Commemoration of Yom Hashoah, and I am also the son of a Holocaust survivor. It is an honor to serve as co-chair and my privilege to introduce our next speaker, who will deliver testimony and represent the survivors. Max Michelson is a native of Riga, Latvia, and was 15 years old when he witnessed the annexation of Latvia. His family was torn apart by the 1941 Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. He quickly lost his entire family while witnessing the unspeakable brutalities of war and genocide. He survived 3 camps and was liberated in Germany in 1945. He is the author of City of Life, City of Death, Memories of Riga. He has devoted his life to teaching countless children in our community about the life and lessons of the Holocaust and speaking about perseverance in times of adversity. Please join us in welcoming Max Michelson.
Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'm here today to talk about the Holocaust, about the Shoah, about my experiences during the war years. More than that, I come to honor the dead and warn the living. Today, I am not your neighbor from Newton. I speak for the victims. I'm one of them. It would be presumptuous for me to talk for all 6 million, but I do think that I may speak for the Latvian Jews, specifically for the Riga Jewish community, of which my family and I were long-time members. Riga had a thriving Jewish community of some 50,000. More than 90% of them were murdered during the Holocaust. Riga was a major cultural center, steeped in Jewish learning and alive with the ideas of Zionism, religious orthodoxy, socialism, and the many other currents of 20th century thought. I knew many of Riga's Jews, relatives, friends, schoolmates, acquaintances, fellow inmates and victims of the ghetto and the camps. The only survivor of a large extended family, my own survival was most impossible. By all laws of probability, I too was killed in Riga. Surely I survived just to bear witness to the crimes and barbarous inhumanity perpetrated on us. For us in Riga, the war started in June 21, 1941, when Hitler attacked the Soviet Union. We understood that Riga would fall to the Germans, and that life under the Nazis would be very, very difficult. Yet it was inconceivable that Germany's policy would be to kill all Jews. After all, this was the 20th century. Germany was a cultural center of Western civilization. Stalin's empire did not provide an attractive alternative, and we decided not to flee to the Soviet Union. A fateful decision. By July 1, Riga was overrun by the Nazi army and civilization disintegrated. Overnight, we were no longer human. Caught in the streets and dragged from our apartments, we were humiliated, tortured, and murdered at will. The pre pre-Soviet era police and Home Guard, together with local Nazi collaborators, took the lead in our persecutions. After the war, it became clear that the killings were directed and orchestrated and encouraged by the SS. For us, it seemed a local effort sparked by anti-Semitic hatred and greed for our possessions. My family had recently moved to a suburb. Not known in that area, we were not affected during the first few days. About a week later, coming home in the afternoon, I found my mother gone. She had been taken ostensibly to work, having volunteered to go in my father's place, as he was older and not too well at the time. I never saw my mother again. Supposedly she ended up in prison and was later murdered there. Decrees of increasing dehumanization, humiliation, and degradation controlled our lives. You may not walk on the sidewalks. You must not ride the streetcars or buses. You must wear a yellow star. No, 2 yellow stars, one on the left breast and one on the middle of the back. Within 6 weeks, we were herded into a ghetto, sealed off by barbed wire, surrounded by armed guards, and permitted into the city only with a gentle escort, herded like cattle. On 2 successive weekends, November 30th and December 7th, 1941, the ghetto was empty. Told of being relocated to an unspecified work camp farther east, some 30,000 of us, men, women, children, were marched 5 miles to a nearby forest, Rumbuli. There we were machine gunned and dumped into pre-dug mass graves. 5 short months after the Nazis occupied Riga, the entire Jewish community had been murdered. My father and I were in a small work camp of some 4,500 people, mostly men, who had temporarily been spared. My father was murdered 2 days later, when all who had remained in the work camp during the day were taken away and shot. After many months in the Riga work camp, I went through the Kaiserwald and Stutthof concentration camps, where in a further humiliation, we lost our identities and became numbers. Interestingly enough, when one of us presented a sabotage, he could not be recognized because our Jewish camp leader gave him a different number, and with a different number, he was not the same person. Interesting. I ended up in the Buchenwald satellite slave labor camp that aimed to implement the destruction through work policy of the Nazis. Hard work and no food, that was the policy. Just barely alive, I was liberated by the Red Army. After several months recuperating in Soviet hospitals, to avoid repatriation to the Soviet Union, I was able to escape via Berlin to the American zone of occupancy. I came to the US in January 1947. I've been asked, why did you not resist? Some of us tried. Many of us were killed resistance. Our resistance is largely unrecorded. Remember, there was no support from the community at large. We were surrounded by hatred and difference stronger and more effective than the barbed wire fence surrounding our ghetto. When it came time for resistance, it was already much too late. Yet I must ask, had we faced reality, what could we have done? Where could we have run? For most of us, there was no place to go. No country wanted us Jews. I remember visiting a Zionist training camp near Riga, where would-be pioneers were prepared for agricultural work in Palestine. But Great Britain didn't let us into Palestine, and they did not get there. The US did not offer refuge for the Jews. It would not even admit Jewish children refugees. The Soviet Union considered us unreliable at best, enemies at worst, to be kept out. The world Jewish community was powerless. In the late 30s, Jews had no political influence, and paraphrasing Elie Wiesel, we Jews had no friends, and because we had no friends, we were dead. After liberation, we vowed never again, and for a time, anti-Semitism was not politically correct. Now, some 70 years later, it's again flourishing. Disguised in anti-Israel and anti-Zionist rhetoric, anti-Semitism is vocal and vicious. Murderous attacks against Jews occur not just in the Middle East, but also all over Europe. State-sponsored anti-Semitism is heard again, old canards, blood libels, and the protocols of the Elders of Zion are being republished. Subject to jihadist attacks, Israel, when it defends itself, is condemned for being guilty of war crimes. Even in our mostly non-anti-Semitic United States, there are complaints in mainstream media that we Jews are using the Holocaust as a club to extort reparations. Our experience is discredited. We, the victims, and our descendants are called hysterical children perpetually crying wolf. But we must, and we do take the existential threats against Jews and Israel most seriously. We must be vigilant and vigorously fight Holocaust deniers and anti-Semitism everywhere. To end on a positive note, 70 years after the worst tragedy in our history, we, the Jewish people, live. Am Yisrael Chai.